Seema, thank you for joining us on the Tech Marketing Podcast, and welcome listeners to another episode. We're very excited to be joined by Seema Barman, Senior Manager of Worldwide Partner Program Infrastructure at Juniper Networks. And of course, I'm joined in the virtual recording booth here by my partner in channel crime. That sounds really dodgy, doesn't it? Partner in channel, let's say, Seb, who's going to be my co-host for this episode. So Seb, Seema, welcome to the Tech Marketing Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, John. It's always a pleasure.
We're really excited. So, Seema, as we were kind of prepping for some of this call, one thing I found really intriguing is this goes for all of us that have found their way into channel. We all kind of fall into channel somehow. It doesn't. It's not something we ever do intentionally. It just kind of happens to us. And your journey is probably one of the most intriguing ones I remember of all of our conversations, which you started in clinical psychology. Like, what was your journey from clinical psychology to partner operations?
Yeah, it is actually quite a leap if you think about it. You know, I was in clinical child psychology when I made the decision to move to an MBA. And to me, that leap was not such a big one because it's very apparent that my psychology training would come in very handy in partner interactions, right? Any kind of channel marketing partner operations role is putting on that empathetic hat, being able to understand pain points, being able to problem solve, and and then high interactions, being able to listen to partners, interact with them. So I was very confident that my psychology skills would be handy in such a role.
I something I really want to make sure I keep coming back to over the next hour that we have together, Seema, because I think this gives you a very unique perspective when I think about many of the challenges that we have today, especially with the, I'm going to say, the entropy that we've introduced into the channel recently, like how much more complex we make partner interaction. So thank you very much for joining us. Really excited to be going through some of our points. So for all of our listeners, we've got kind of a roller coaster of partner operations we're going to be going through today, isn't it, Seb? So we're going to be starting talking about some of our invisible infrastructure, and why it's important to build infrastructure that empowers partners. We'll be talking about touching on trust, and then, of course, something that is very dear to my heart and to actually one of the last guests that I had on the podcast, about mentorship and empowerment of both partners and of all of us in our roles. So this is going to be a really, really exciting podcast. Seema, coming back to you, like let's kick off. Like, when you're building a partner program, you've actually been on the program side and one-to-one with partners, right? So how has that shaped your perspective on how you help them?
It's interesting. I made a pivotal change in my role when I was hired by Juniper Networks. And one of the biggest reasons that I was hired there is because of the fact that I was front and center with partner marketing, channel marketing. In pretty much every role I've had in the channel, I've been front and center with partners. And that, that's a very unique perspective because you're privy to all their pain points, right? So that's the hat we always need to put on. And that's what my experience led me. Day in and out in strategic planning sessions, we heard from hundreds of VARs, ISPs, DISTs, big international distributors, what their typical pain points are. And being in that role actually was a huge value proposition for me when I was coming into Juniper, and actually building that infrastructure. Um, it was really interesting because at every turn, I was a huge advocate for partners. Are we thinking about their user experience? Are we thinking that it's going to be 5 clicks for them before they actually land in the program? And that perspective has actually really come in handy.
Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to the converted here, Seema. Like, I think this is when I've been thinking a lot about this recently, like this concept of entropy. Like, we love, as a partner program develops, it gets more and more complex, and we often don't think about like that extra click that we've just asked the partner to go through.
It's the user experience.
It's
No,
crazy. Seb.
it's it's brilliant hearing that perspective where you're putting the partner hat on, because I think the challenge we see, particularly in big businesses, is that so much focus for a partner team gets directed inwards. How do I align with my executives? How do I get on the IT roadmap? How do I corral and try and galvanize a force to help me deliver that experience to partners? And I think it needs champions. Like, you have to have champions in your team who are just focused around the partner, almost to kind of try and catch that inward looking view and say there's more that we need to do.
No, I'm always playing the devil's advocate. Like, have you thought about, isn't 8 emails a bit too much? We're inundating them with communication. Don't get me wrong, communication is key to getting programs rolled out. But what's the happy balance? What's that user experience? Every time we change platforms, every time we get a new program out, are we thinking about the partner? And that's, I mean, in every room, that's the question that I'm always challenging.
It reminds me, Seema, of the kind of this approach that Amazon have, which is they always have an empty chair in every room to represent the customer. I don't think we do that enough on the partner side, do we? We don't. I'd love that approach of just at least having the partner in the room with you, really.
So, Seema, thinking about that and kind of bringing that lens where you're trying to always go, how we bring in the partner. How have you found that your experience building out kind of a global MDF program? You know, a significant kind of all partner program that you've taken out to market. What are some of the kind of the learnings, I guess, you took from bringing that partner first lens when you have to, you know, design and build out something fairly sizable? Naturally, because it's financial, it can be quite complex under the surface, but kind of what were the areas you looked at to try and keep it as simple as possible for your partners?
And therein lies the keyword simplicity. So what happens, and I've actually led MDF programs both from the partner facing side. I was heading America's channel marketing for HGSD, and at Juniper I was on the other side of the fence. My clients were the worldwide business leads for MDF. The challenge we have with designing MDF programs, because it's marketing money, is this scale of 1 to 10. Where do we want to land in terms of compliance, risk, audit trail and audit proof, and then accountability, and then last, which is not in the least bit the least important, it's probably the most important, traceability and ROI, right? And so every program, MDF program I've designed, is kind of complex with those requirements. Now it's up to the vendor how they manage these variables. The more complex we make it, the more we can. I've really designed an unbelievably high risk program at my last 2 companies, and we're probably 11 on the scale of 1 to 10 in terms of managing the risk and compliance. But we haven't made it simple for the partners. It has been complex for them. So my challenge was, I want to be able to be not in audit jail because I own the program in terms of infrastructure preparation. So we're going to map out high risk flows. We're going to be really compliance safe. How can we now make it easy for the partners to actually be compliant with their asks and yet not make it complex? And the answer to that was make some high risk workflows automated. So every time we design the MDF program, keep these variables in mind. But then we also go back internally to our infrastructure and technology investments and see, while being compliant, while managing the high risk, while managing the requirements of POP, how can we make it easy for partners? Maybe self-service kind of models where their workflows are so intuitive that pop. They get the requirements of the project activity very easily. So that kind of perspective is very important when we are designing new tools. And one of the big things that I led in my current role was an integration to a more tech savvy SaaS platform that allowed us much more automation into that workflow.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And again, it's the area that I've enjoyed most about the channel and brought me into the channel was helping our clients think about their engagements with partners as delivering services. You
Yes.
know, that kind of idea that we're trying to enable people to achieve their goal. And the best way of doing that is think of it like a service. And that means designing something that can be automated, because that's a huge win, because it means it's timely and can be specific and relevant. But also just trying to connect the people, the processes that are going to happen around, so that the tech can kind of prosper and work inside your business.
Yeah. Still haven't achieved the automation, but trying to make the tool easy with intuitive steps, trying to enable a partner with easy to follow training guides, trying to have the third party support services. In today's world, AI assistance. So that would really empower and enable a partner to stay compliant, to do the requirements for MDF reimbursement, but yet make it easy. Let's make the workflow easier.
Yeah, no, yeah, we're totally I love that, and it's an area, particularly MDF, where there's a lot of hoops because there's finance involved and compliance and so on, and it's probably of every transaction that partners have with a vendor, it's probably the most kind of the most steps to complete something.
Yeah, MDF has the highest oversight. It's one of those areas where highest compliance risk. So within Juniper, we work cross-functionally with finance, compliance, internal audit, business stakeholders, and then of course the sales people feet on the street. MDF makes them look good. So how can we all cross-functionally, and my role works cross-functionally across to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, but yet are we making it easy for partners?
So one question, and you've mentioned this a few times, Seema. Like you've talked about making it easy for partners, and we often say, like, how do we increase make it easy for partners to do business with us? Like I hear this in almost every partner and channel conversation or ecosystem conversation out there. Like, if we were to distill that down, what does ease of doing business really mean? What are the key points? You talked about clicks and removing steps a moment ago, but if you were to define ease of doing business, how would you define it?
So for me, it really translates into the actionables the partners have to take, right? The investment programs that have almost become like table stakes today in the channel for big two-tier, three-tier channel vendors. We have to remember that these wars, these big disties are dealing with hundreds of vendors. So what are these actionables? For each one of these vendors, they've actually got to go put in their project, go claim the POP, get their MDF reimbursement. For rebates, they have to go claim them. For seller rewards, they have to actually, provide that proof of performance to actually claim those. So the actionables are really translated into simple steps. If we can make it easy for the partners to engage in these programs, simplify single sign on, for example, you'd be surprised. It's one of the easiest things to integrate with IT and make single sign on. It's one click versus several clicks with third party vendors, right? Ability to enroll in these programs and be eligible. So it seems very simple enough for the legal team. They need, terms signed off, but we can make it easier for the partners, right? A single step, single sign on. How can they get traceability and trackability into their KPIs? That's a big one too. A lot of times partners struggle to see, and they're participating in 10 different programs with the vendor, but they don't have a single pane of glass and that visibility to see what is their performance. Without giving them that visibility, we really don't get them engaged. So I think those are really big ones. Those actionables, if we can make it easy for the partner, that user experience of engaging with the vendor becomes significantly better.
I, and I read that as single sign-on is a great one, right? Something I've always been passionate about. It was one of the first projects I ever did in the channel. We talked about how we fell into the channel. One of mine was integrating single sign-on for channel partners. But that piece of essentially what you're saying there is like give the partner fewer places to have to go to get all their information. Give them that single pane of glass, which you completely agree with. Like Seb, this is something we've been incredibly passionate about. Like, is there anything missing from that list of things to make it easy to do business with?
It's really interesting because I think I totally agree about the actionables. That's the thing of like we are in the channel, we are people working together. And there's an element where if you can be the easiest business to do that work with, you are going to have more chance of succeeding with your ecosystem and with partners. And the importance of it is as you said, big partners are working with hundreds of vendors. Smaller partners are working with tens of vendors. So it's hard to be that much better on product and price is not easy. So being easier to work with, we will all go there. Which is why, service design is so important.
Yeah. And when we make it easy to do business, we are fostering that stickiness in the relationship. Of course, the niche marketing, the product value, that value proposition has to come from the product team. But those programs that are going to enable them to uplift their SA, how can we make it easy for them? How can we foster that stickiness in the relationship?
And that's where again, when you were talking about bringing automation to MDF, it's such a key kind of requirement to step forward. Because if there was a list of attributes that I have for being easy to do business with, it's being relevant, it's being timely, it's being specific, and being actionable. And so that's why that fourth one is exactly the same. But if you do those four things, it means you're taking away, I need to work out what to do. Because you're being specific and it's relevant to me and it's, I need to focus now. And so that's when we talk about comms, it's almost like, can you tell me something which, is those three things? And then what should I do? And that's how you move someone along the journey of doing business together. And it feels easier.
Yes, as my call to action, clear and succinct, right?
So you mentioned it. So we talked about some of our invisible infrastructure there, but you mentioned something that I think was really interesting, Seema, which was about some of the metrics that and data points you need to track and why. So, like, let's kind of drill into that because this is all about the visibility and trust side. Like, what are the most important? When it comes to designing any program, and we've got here in our notes, it could be MDF or rebates. What are the most important data points to track, and why?
And interesting that you bring this up, John. A lot of times I will work with my clients, my business leads, and we want to run and launch a program, but are we stopping even for a minute to see how we're going to track the performance of that program? So performance tracking or tracking ROI is very critical whenever we are running to launch a program. With MDF, there are simple metrics that go, by default, right? Eyeballs, conversion rates, how many people came to the training. That all is very easy, and we keep partners accountable, right, for those kind of metrics. But I think the big ones is MDF really contributing to the pipeline, and that's a big one, and it's still a challenge for a lot of vendors. Are they really able to design a closed loop process to actually get that accountability? How the leads we are generating, how many opportunities are they converting to, and then how many deal reg? So what is that conversion rate, right? And are we really tracking to see these leads, right? Is somebody really taking the leads from an MDF tool into a Salesforce CRM kind of environment, and then somebody really turning those leads from cold, warm to hot and following up with them? Therein comes the true ROI investment. And so that's a big one. So, simple metrics, we talked about eyeballs, lead conversions, email metrics, banners, training, conversion rate from leads to deal registration. We also shouldn't forget overall operational metrics. I think that utilization number, how much the MDF utilization number is actually a big one, right? Um, a vendor could be zealous in giving out MDF because it's that red carrot approach again. You want to look good, so you want to throw out the MDF. But how much of that MDF is really the partner leveraging within the parameters of the MDF program? So that MDF utilization rate actually year over year, quarter over quarter is very relevant for the vendor to track. How much are the partners leaving on the table? Which area, which region, that will help you actually invest in resources to actually look at the weak and the strong areas. And that's a good one. And then KPIs for the partner itself, right? Those kind of metrics, overarching KPIs. I talked about that single pane of glass. Is the partner having visibility in all their programs, and how are they performing against each one of them? So those big KPIs for the partners are actually very important metrics for them. Every time a PAM is sitting down in a QBR evaluating the state of the business, um, you know, overall sales leaders, they can actually hone in and see which are the regions that really didn't perform. They would have done those sales anyway without any investment. Are we really pushing the dial? So those overarching operational metrics are actually very relevant as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing, like when we think of that term trust and what we're building up, because it goes two ways, doesn't it? There's within the business, we have to show that we're delivering some value to be able to say, as a partnership team, as an ecosystem team, this investment we can show the reward it brings, and then there's the how do we optimize it? Like you said, utilization. They're also critical, but the information back to partners, and again, we're passionate about it because we have developed services and products around that pane of glass. With the partner very much as the focus to start. Like, how do we take disparate data and show the KPIs, measure those KPIs, and ideally make it as actionable as we can? So, what do you need to do to achieve more, and so on? But the feedback we have from customers and the sentiment it drives with partners, that transparency becomes a real underlying kind of relationship value, where the speed of it, the fact that you're showing all of it, you're not cherry picking or not showing some things. It builds that kind of that ethos, I guess, of being good partnerships, which is underlined.
I think you raised some really interesting metrics as well, Seema. Like, there are some items there that you can utilize in lots of different ways to know if you're making it easy for the partner. Like, MDF utilization is one that I've seen come up multiple times, partly because it could show where you're not closing the loop, partly because it can show various different accounting behaviors that may be happening, but also, like, if a partner's not spending their MDF, like maybe they've dropped off and gone with one of your competitors. Like, have you seen in your experience? Have you seen kind of what's been the most interesting use of a metric in driving a decision?
So one of the metrics we use in a rebate program, we're very creative, and our rebate program is very mature in our creativity and the way we target different segments of the channel. One of the metrics that we leverage is close to end of quarter, where we actually, push out a percentage to the partner and saying, well, if you really, you're 2 weeks from end of quarter and you're this far from achieving your base target and that number to your bottom line, and that really helps to turn the dial in the it's a potential, again, like a red carrot approach, but that you were eligible for this rebate. You are literally 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
from quarter, and if they in turn can push the dial with their sales team to close a deal and actually hit that number. So in my mind, I'll be honest with you, every metric is relevant, but there are certain time sensitive metrics that really help to turn that dial. And having a service model and a platform that enables you to give that insight to partners really helps you position better in their eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from a vendor perspective, right? The more value that our programs provide, the more data insights that we give to partners, the more ability we give them for their performance tracking, it really is going to enable them to be an extended sales force more actively.
Yeah. And it's a great example when we talk about timely, relevant, specific. It's like, because you can translate that into a really simple, like, you're leaving money on the table if you don't, which, and that's in business, everybody is motivated to, build their bottom line. So
Absolutely, maximize their profitability, right?
The I think we've answered our next question, which is, would you say visibility is so essential to the success of a partner program? I think we've got to say yes, but what I'm gonna, because it's obvious. Yes, of course it is.
It's really obvious, right? And more than that, right? If we don't have visibility in partner performance, how are we going to support? So, for example, finance needs to do financial planning, they need to do modeling, right? um, the different stakeholders need to plan resources for the next half of the year, for the next year. The data insights into this performance tracking by partner really allows them to do their job, so that data becomes the founding model for next steps, right? Future financial modeling is depending upon it, in future investments are dependent upon it. All the strategic planning that business leaders do for MDF, they have to go back and see, how did that partner perform? Did they even leverage that MDF? Did they leave money on the table? Which areas did they invest in? Did they turn the dial on the new product launches? That kind of performance tracking, did the sales actually uplift? Giving them that visibility, it actually enables them to assign dollars or not assign dollars, and see where is the areas they need to tweak. And you can even do it from a regional perspective, you can do it from a partner perspective, you can do it from a product perspective, but data really becomes the founding step for them to leapfrog next steps.
yeah, just cannot disagree. You're totally right. That it's the challenge is taking MDF is that quite often, like, MDF programs can run quarterly or even like every 6 months. The sales cycle can take longer, and so there's this element of trying to manage those financial cycles alongside the actual business cycle. But that can be modeled. It can be analyzed if you have data. And I think, again, when you're saying visibility and trust, and probably the other area that becomes really relevant for partners is consistency. That sense of things will be changing, but they're not constantly changing. And again, we see that with programs, that you want to have stability in the way in which partners can earn, whether it's rebate or however the transactions come. But that stability does require lots of planning.
It does. It does. And we forget that sometimes. We try to, program is not working, let's change it. And again, I play the devil's advocate and say, research tells us program has to run 6 to 8 quarters to really get the true ROI. Did it really work or it failed? So we may be zealous in trying to, tweak the dial. Okay, let's change it. But again, that mention of stability and constancy, that's also important, because we have to remember partners are seeing hundreds of vendors, and if we keep changing programs very fast, we're probably losing their trust.
That's a really fascinating kind of data point, that it will take 6 to 8 quarters to kind of enable the program to start to prosper. What do you think? Why do you think that is? Kind of that long? Is that the sales cycle, or actually seeing the return, or it's just the adjustment of businesses to working on a new program?
I think it's a combination of everything, right? Change management takes time, learning takes time, um, MDF and rebates, for example, the TAT on reimbursement and payment is a longer sales cycle, right? So accountability, being able to get that data and action that accountability. So it's a combination of everything. Sales cycles are longer. Plus, again, and I'm harping on it, but that's the truth. Partners are seeing hundreds of vendors. They're seeing hundreds of training in invitations. They're inundated with different kind of programs. We've just trained them. It's taken them 2 quarters to actually understand the program and log in and download a report and see the nuances of it. And we change it again. They just absorbed it, right? So think of it from a psychological perspective. Like they just learned to walk, and now we're changing and turning the running trail again. And that's the perspective. So it's a combination of everything. Um, the 6 to 8 quarters is a number I heard somewhere, but they advocate that new programs should at least run for that number of quarters to really track measurability on it and really track, was it effective or was it just a failure?
Yeah.
Completely agree. I think if I was to think what's missing from partner programs with and the metrics we're talking about, consistency feels like one, because we're human. I think we underestimate the amount of education, training, amount of times we have to repeat certain elements of a partner program. What else is missing from partner programs and the metrics in order to build that visibility and trust, Seema?
I think the big one is traceability, and I talked about it, right? How transparent are we? 8, 10 years ago, a lot of vendors didn't do system integrations between the CRM and the third party services, or CRM, ERP instances, so that traceability, that single pane of glass, or that's even, for a PAM, they had to go here to get the source of truth for the partner, and now they have to action the programs in another third party tool or a hosted service or a custom service. So traceability, providing that visual both to the internal teams and to the partner is a big one, I think. If you provide them more transparency, if those tools are integrated, it used to be an exception by 8, 10 years ago. It's almost becoming a business requirement now. uh, I'm seeing more and more of that. Um, and it really helps build that trust that we talked about. In the past, vendors were more worried about channel conflict. How much granular can we get to expose this essay, right? 2 tier, 3 tier channel models. So that channel conflict was always a worry. It still is. So every vendor evaluates their own scale of how much are we going to expose. But again, that data visibility, that single pane of glass, actually enables a partner, actually enables the PAM to sell more, to do better, improves that stickiness and the relationship. So those are some things that I think are very key. And as a partner ops leader, I feel integration actually improves user experience. Um, it just improves that overall experience, both for the partners as well as for our internal teams.
I mean, it'd be mad. You wouldn't go to Amazon and open your orders and expect your orders to be blank because it's not integrated, right? We just expect that, and I think we sometimes let B2B and channel get away with lower standards, and that will be held against us. But you mentioned something really important there, which brings us on to like our final section here, which is how do we make the partner do better? How do we empower them? So with such a deep commitment to this to partner experience that we've discussed today, and there's been at least 3 points I've earmarked clips and great quotes from you here, Seema. But there's also a personal element to all of this that takes us away from web interfaces and systems. Mentoring's been a big personal mission for you from our pre-call. Like, why is that so important? Like, how did you land on mentoring and empowerment?
I mean, I don't mind sharing a personal experience. I was young. I was in clinical trial and suddenly thrown into high tech, and I was clueless. I was coming from another country, new culture, working for a British company, and a little in this little hole in cabin. I was working, and I was quietly taken under the wing by an Irish woman. I've never forgotten her. I didn't ask for that mentorship. She just saw something in me and she kind of guided me. I've never forgotten Stacey Horseman and what she provided to me as an advisor, as a mentor, and a gentle guidance in that first new job in corporate world. Years later, in another big company, I was, of course, running 300 miles an hour, a working mom, corporate world. And I realized, and I had a team of young adults working for me, and a couple of them were, young moms who were trying to juggle so many hats. And I realized how many times we failed to ask for a helping hand because we're trying to climb every hill ourselves. And at that point, I remember Hitachi had initiated this mentoring program where we'd actually, allow fresh graduates or graduates in their senior year to do internships and give them an opportunity to be the first to apply for new positions and entry level positions, and mentor them through the process, not just a 6 week summer job, but maybe a 6 month internship. And really, the value I saw, the relationships I developed, just sparked this whole um, interest in me, that why can we not give back? Why can't we not share the lessons we learn in our journey in the corporate world? And it's brutal out there, right? So it became something personal to me, and I've been involved in all different aspects. When I join a new company, I look out for such groups where I can be part of. um, I don't mind sharing my challenges with the younger generation, right? I've already walked that path. I actually personally, no matter how old we get, no matter how seasons we get, um, always look out for an advisor. I still go out and run, something challenging through advisors, and that's what I would pass the message. Don't be afraid to seek out an advisor or a mentor. Don't be afraid to share your challenges. Who knows what nugget of information you will get from someone that might help you in your course of that. And the reason I mentioned women is because we're very shy. We take on a lot. We excel at multitasking, but we're afraid to ask for help. We judge ourselves, and asking for help, you'd be surprised how many have actually gone through those challenges, and it can open up a whole new opportunity for you out there to learn from their lessons. And who knows, you might be motivated to pass that back, right? So for me, I would encourage women out there, seek help, share your challenges, share your wins, and build your community. Yeah, build each one of them. Invest some time to build a community for yourself, community that you can fall back for, not for your work, for your work life experiences.
Such an inspiring message there, Seema, actually. Completely agree. I'll add the one extra item that you kind of hinted at, which is something I live by, is also like, don't be afraid of going outside your comfort zone just a little. Because that's where we learn, as long as you've got the right support network and community around you. So yeah, really, really
Think
inspiring
out of
message.
the box, actually. Always think out of the box and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, no, it's you said it all perfectly, and it is very inspiring, and it's also it's that it's kind of like an honest, it's being honest as well, which I really appreciate. And I think for me in the channel, it's I've met a range of different people that maybe I wouldn't have met in my social life or in my personal life that I've really enjoyed. And I think lots of the events we've run and workshops we've run, bringing people together. One of the things I found so rewarding is often we're in a bubble of trying to solve problems and understand challenges and run at them. And like you said, it's really easy to feel like that's my job. That's what I'm paid to do, is deal with it. And we're people, and actually what we need to do is work out how to just get it done. But one of the things that's been so rewarding has been the validation you can sometimes get when you step out of your bubble, when you realize, oh, actually, we're not doing too badly. Like, yes, we can do some things better, but actually it's not saying other people are further behind. It's just that sense of you begin to realize what you're doing really well as the things that you want to do better in. And that's a positive kind of experience, I think, that everybody needs, just again to keep confident. And yeah,
It's a big one, validation. It's surprising that you mentioned that one. Frequently, I've heard it from my manager that you're not touting your wins as much as you should, and um, you know, um, that's something that a community will help with. How do you validate what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? How do you actually speak about your wins loud and clear, so you are also able to apply for that promotion, and that validation that you were also good enough to rise for a bigger position. So that community, that mentorship, that advisor can provide you that leg up.
yeah, yeah. No, I think it's inspiring, and it's nice. Like I said, it's obviously something core in your day-to-day experience now, is you want to provide that back, which I think is something we can all look to do. And I'm sure we'll all get some value from it.
So bringing us back to partners and onto our final question here, Seema, because we've had a lot of your time today. Like, we're living in a world now that's moving even far. You mentioned 300 miles an hour before in one of your previous roles. I think we're going about 800 miles an hour now with AI and everything else on top. What does the future of partner infrastructure look like to you? Like, if you were to look forward into the next horizon, what does it look like?
Definitely more automation. I think that every vendor should aspire to give partners time back to move away from that basic administrative task to real strategic tasks of improve the what can we improve in our strategy and rollout, right? They have to come back and claim their dollars, right? But how can we automate that? So automation, I think AI, leveraging AI to improve support, time to market, right? Improving that time to market, leveraging AI, right, would be beneficial both for the partner as well as for the vendor. So, what I foresee is we would get user experiences would improve because we'll bring in more automation, more self-service models in areas where it can be more, automated. We'll be bringing in AI functionality in our support models, a place where a partner is logging in just to see, am I eligible, did I even get a reward? That 5 minutes can be saved by a chatbot like an AI assistant, and it can say, oh, you have about 30,000 in reward, and that time, the T&M that the partner is saving, is actually going back to do something more productive. So I think more automation, more leveraging AI, more self-service models, and the biggest one I think is more vendors understanding the value of serving up data and dashboards, giving that, empowering that partner to actually be able to look at their performance themselves. So that partner enablement should really improve by leaps and bounds, and therein their user experience.
Completely agree. Something we're very passionate about, Seb.
Indeed, indeed. Like, I mean, it comes back to what we said earlier about transparency and about a willingness to show, what you need to do to succeed, and provide the information. And with that comes challenges, and it's a process to get there. But if you don't have control of the data, it's very difficult to build automation, to utilize AI in a sensible, secure way. You have to build up to that, and I think it's absolutely critical. And I think the interesting thing that will happen in the future is seeing how far we can go in meeting partners where they are, and enabling them to have information, to take actions without actually having to go, to another site, to your world. I mean, I think that's the interesting future, which is quite complex to think about, and how to make that work. But I'm sure that's going to be part of, making that user experience even simpler and easier, is almost how we can connect it into the partners world more.
it's a fine dance. How much do you expose, how much do you make it easy, and there are nuances of compliance risks and quality and the channel conflicts. There's all those challenges, but I think we're getting really into that world where the technology will be enable us to manage those risks and still serve up data that is going to empower our partners more to do what they really were intended to do, is sell more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and again, it becomes interesting when you look across the ecosystem of from the customer perspective and looking at the customer experience that's going to happen with your technology through your ecosystem. That's getting more complicated, but technology and AI has the potential to make the customer experience work really, really well, which is ultimately going to be that's the game, isn't it?
That's the dance we're all dancing.
Yes.
It's Seema, thank you very much for joining us on the Tech Marketing Podcast today. It's been a pleasure to have you on. I've had some in fact, there's been a few clips that I've captured as we've been going through and a few quotes. So this has been really insightful for me and hopefully for all of our listeners.
It has been for me as well. It's such a pleasure to meet both of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Seema.